Chris Rashley is one of the world's best moth sailors, and we're lucky enough to be speaking to Chris at Stokes Bay Sailing Club, his home club on the south coast of England. And Chris, you're going to show us around your beautiful Exocet Moth. So just talk us through it. Just show us the whole boat firstly, and just tell us a little bit about the Exocet and how it came about.
Yeah, so the Exocet was kind of the baby of Kevin Elway, I guess. He really wanted to design a boat, very very well built and to the highest possible spec that we could. And we were lucky enough to find a builder that could do that for us with Simon Maguire in Lymington, Maguire Boats. So Kevin went about and designed us a hull and gave us all the angles and all the information required, and Simon went away and built us the first Exocet, and since then we've improved it and modified it significantly from its original form. One of the few things to say the same is the hull shape itself. Okay,
now just talk us through some of the components on the boat, and one of the ones that looks fairly new to me is the Bowsprit. These have really only just come in the last year, right?
Yeah, so the Bowsprit came about because we're allowed a 500mm appendage at the front and the rear of the boat, and currently we were mounting the wand, which is this part here, in a box sort of about 100mm back from the bow, and Kevin had worked out that obviously the further forward we can get the pivot point, and the further forward that the wand is in front of the boat, the better the pitch stability and the better the response for the wand that drives the flap on the main foil is. So in theory kind of makes the boat act as though it's longer than it really is.
And so you were one of the few that had it for a while, but how many would you expect to be up against at a major championship now?
I mean, for me the Bowsprit is just, it's the norm. It's something that everyone that I sail against in an Exocet has got, and we kind of don't talk about it as this new thing anymore. It's been the norm for over a year. Kevin had it on his boat 18 months ago, and we certainly thought about it a long time before that. So ultimately it's just the norm for us now, and I certainly wouldn't go back. It's improved the boat's pitch stability significantly, and our downwind speed has really improved dramatically.
Excellent. Let's walk a little bit further back down the boat. Let's come to the mast and the cockpit and this phenomenal array of controls. I don't even know where to begin, but maybe we can start from the front going backwards. Just tell us about some of these things, and also the choice of equipment that you use, because you're sponsored by Allen Brothers, so a lot of these fittings, how many would you say of these fittings are Allen Brothers fittings?
Like 95% of them. There's only a few sort of cleats and wedges and things like that aren't Allen. There's one very high-low block on the bottom that isn't Allen, but apart from that, we have everything on the boat is by Allen Brothers.
And your reason for that, as opposed to some of the other manufacturers?
Well, when I originally approached Allen, they were very keen to develop and work on some of their equipment with me, and for me to test things for them, and I've certainly done that over the last few years. I've broken a number of things by using things in wrong applications, and I've broken a number of things which should have stood up to the job, and they've really come out well and designed things and improved things to make it stand up to the torture that I'm putting it through in the boat, and nowadays I never break anything. I mean, I haven't broken a block or anything on their out of their range for well over a year, and I go sailing a lot and put everything through a lot of stress.
Excellent. So you are their chief test pilot by the sound of it. So just tell us, where do we start? Let's start with the Vang, because I think I recognise that from other boats. It's got this strut poking down from the boom. What's the strut about?
Yeah, so when we went over to kinking the boom, which is kind of an idea that Nathan Outridge had at the last Worlds, we lowered the mast back in 2014 to bring the centre of effort down, which has now become very popular in things like the A class. They've all sort of reducing centre of effort, which makes a foiling boat easier to sail and potentially a little bit faster as well. So we lowered the rig, and then we realised that we were struggling to get under the boom with the leach length, obviously, because everything's gone down. So we thought I saw this idea of Nathan kinking the boom, and then so we can keep a longer leach but also have the centre of effort lower, and I think that's a great idea. So when we did that, we then realised that we also needed a lever on the boom, because otherwise we were really struggling with angle. Obviously the lower that you can get the pivot point for the boom down, the better that it operates. And obviously if it's operating up in the air, then the pull is very shallow, which means you need a huge amount of purchase, and there's a lot of load going through the boat. So having a lever on there lowers the pivot and makes the whole system a lot more efficient.
Excellent. Cunningham, I think I understand that one.
Yeah, so Cunningham, I mean, a lot of people have a system on the outside which would run up and down here, but I've got my sort of like speedo, starting box, heel angle, etc, all the things you need in a Moth box there, so I couldn't have that, so I run the Cunningham through the cleat, round the turning block, and have a 12-to-1 inside the boom, which dead ends just on an eye about 3/4 of the way down the boom. It also keeps it central, which means everything pulls centrally, and it's very efficient having a long cascade over lots of blocks in a system, so it actually works really nicely.
So most of that we can't even see, it's all beautifully hidden away.
The boom, yeah.
Okay, and then working...
So the blue rope is rig canting, something which for me the jury's still out on, whether it's actually better to cant the rig or not. I mean, certainly people like Mike Lennon will say that it's the only way, but for me, I've yet to see this this big gain. So, but I have a system on my boat because I'm trying it and testing it and trying to learn to use it.
So you may have it just locked off on some days.
Yeah,
then.
I mean, quite often it really does depend on the conditions. If it's super light winds, then I'll probably leave it locked off, because it can make the boat very hard to sail, and you don't obviously want to fall off the foil, or if you're going through lulls and things like that, can make the boat a little bit more or less forgiving. And when it's very windy, you don't need it. You lose a lot of righting moment by canting the rig. So it's really only the kind of conditions from, say, sort of 8 to 14 knots or 7 to 14 knots probably where you're going to use it.
Okay, all right, so that's a maybe use, but yeah. Tell us about some of the other ones.
So yellow rope is just the wand length, so you'll see that if I pull it from this side, that the wand gets shorter and longer. It's a very important control on our boat, and ultimately the wand length dictates how high you fly. It also dictates where the paddle touches the water, so if you have a very short wand, it touches the water further forward. If you have a very long one, it touches the water further back. That changes your gearing and also your pitch stability of the boat as well. So we use a shorter one when it's windy, which gives it more pitch stability and lowers you down at the same time, and a longer one which reduces it in the lighter winds, reduces the flap movement, which is faster, and you don't necessarily need so much control because you're less likely to crash.
Okay, lovely.
And then the black rope here is basically what we call the gearing. It drives the gear rod or the gear arm, I should say, up and down. So it goes up and down like that. And what that does is changes the wand versus flap response on the foil. So if you have a lot of gearing on, then the flap moves a lot for a given wand movement. And if you take the gearing off, then the flap moves very little relative to the same wand movement. So it just gives you more or less control depending on what you need. Okay.
Any others that we haven't covered yet?
No, I think that's it really. Just Cunningham, Vang, canting, adjustable wand, and the gearing. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's overly complicated. It's kind of the bare minimum that you can get away with operating these days.
Mike Lennon, he'll have a few more than that.
He'll have more than that. Yeah, I don't even think there's enough colours of string to actually have everything a different colour on his boat.
So you're going for the simpler approach.
Yeah,
but
certainly. Yeah.
It still doesn't look simple to me, but it looks beautifully laid out. It has to be said. So. Fairly basic main sheet, but no cleat on a Moth.
No cleat, just a 4-to-1 and a ratchet, and have a number of different strops to try and centralise the main sheet and also make it operate easily. It's very important when you're sailing the Moth not to trip over the main sheet, as it is in any boat. So have a sort of bungee system which keeps the main sheet in front of your feet and tries to keep it out of your feet when tacking and jibing, and also stops it getting caught over the side when you're going upwind.
And just quickly show us what these wings are about. They've got quite hard edges to them. They don't look that comfortable to hike off the edge of.
No, they're not comfortable at all, but you know, comfortably is not always fast. No, we have originally we used to have a round bar, because it was easy to get a round tube, but we kind of found that obviously by hiking off a round tube you are losing a very, very small amount of righting moment, maybe like 10 or 12 millimeters or something. So Simon sort of built us some square edges so that we could hike off with maximum beam, obviously just trying to, you know, dominate every little advantage that there is. So yeah, we've gone over. It's sort of very uncomfortable, to be honest, to hike off of, but ultimately you just get used to it, or your legs get used to it.
That's the price you pay.
Yeah.
And you've got a little bit of flotation under there, but some people run without any flotation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got a basically it's a kite surfing type of kite surfing inner tube. I think it's the best way to explain it, like you'd have inside the inflation of a kite surfing kite, and just sits in a little pocket. For me, it's absolutely critical. Everyone makes mistakes, and you know, quite often you see people go for a tack, dip the wing in the water, and it gets sucked under very quickly. It's kind of like you know, when you drop a sail in the water and it sucks it under the water and you struggle to get it back out, and it's very similar when you dip a wing in a Moth. So having a flotation just stops the wing getting sucked under the boat, and just helps massively in terms of when you make a mistake.
So one concession to comfort there.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
But not many.
Not many, no.
And just finish us off with the back of the boat here. The gantry. Just tell us why have the rudder gantry.
So yeah, we again we have we're allowed a 500mm appendage on the front and back. So trying to make this little tiny boat as long as possible, and have a gantry just purely so we can hang the rudder off of it and generate a little bit more length. Obviously, if we weren't constrained by that rule, we'd just make the hull another 500mm longer because it would be easier. But it's the rule, and that's what we're working with.
And any secret gizmos that you haven't shown us here because you're going to hold them back for the next Worlds or something?
I've got a couple of things in the pipeline, and they may or may not get used at the Worlds, but for me it's all about experimenting, testing this equipment and trying to work out whether there's an advantage. If there's no advantage to using it, which quite often happens with the things that I work on, then I won't use it, but I'll always learn in the process of doing it. So yeah, there's a couple of things which I might use at the Worlds.
It's a never-ending game, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, thanks very much.
Cheers.